Greetings and welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Poly Weekly News. I'm your host, David Danto, and on the show this week, we're going to be talking to the General Manager of Enterprise Connect and one of the speakers at that show, and we'll get into some topics about what's going on, what to expect, and how things are going. So my guests are Eric Krapf. Eric, say hi to everybody and introduce yourself.
Hi, David. Hi, Irwin. How are you? Good to see everybody here today, the two of you, and good to talk to your audience.
And Irwin, can you give us a couple of words as to who you are and what you're doing in the industry?
Sure. Hi, I'm Irwin Lazar. I'm president and principal analyst with a company called Metrigy. And we spend our time going out gathering data from end user organizations about what they're spending money on and why, and trying to identify what are successful approaches in the customer engagement and enterprise collaboration spaces.
Excellent. Thank you both for joining us for this week. So if I happen to be an alien, which is actually very likely considering the news at this point of all the things that are coming into our airspace, but if I happen to be an alien that just landed on the planet, Eric, what would you say? How would you describe what Enterprise Connect is?
Well, I guess before I got into Enterprise Connect, I'd say go home while you still have the chance. It may not be such a great deal for you here, but no, I would welcome him or her or them, and I would say Enterprise Connect is the largest independent conference and expo covering the unified communications. Enterprise communications and collaboration and contact center technology space in North America. We've been around for over 30 years. We had a couple of years where we weren't able to do the show in person because of the pandemic, but we came back last year, just about this time in March, and we're delighted to be coming back again in a little over a month.
And it's the same venue, the same facility, the Gaylord Palms with the convention center and the I don't want to call it fake. Let's call it the wonderful rainforest in the middle of it with the alligators and everything else.
Yeah, it's we'll be back at the Gaylord Palms. It's a great venue, and our attendees. You get to this time of year, and if you live somewhere in the northern parts of the country, it's kind of nice to go down to Florida for a few days.
So it's also it's a networking event where you get to see what's going on in the industry, and you get to see colleagues specifically around collaboration and telephony and conferencing, and that's a very, very unique thing. There are a lot of analysts at the show that are both presenting and teaching and also trying to figure out what's going on in the directions. And there are a lot of keynotes that are happening. You've announced some of the keynotes already, haven't you?
Oh yeah, we've announced all of them, and so yeah, you're right. It's networking, I think, has become the thing that people really love about in-person events after having had a couple of years where you couldn't do so much in person with anybody. And that's certainly, I think what people love the most about the show is the opportunities to get together. There's, lots of functions, receptions. We're doing some peer roundtables where folks from enterprise organizations, particularly those kind of with the higher level titles, we're going to put them together for some conversations, kind of curated. But of course, too, as you say, the conference, the sessions that led by people like Irwin. That's always been really kind of one of the things that people love about the show. They go in depth. You get 3.5 days of great content. And yeah, so the keynotes this year were on Tuesday. We've got Nicole Herskowitz from Microsoft. Obviously, a lot of news coming in. And I want to preface by saying I don't have any advanced knowledge of what any of our keynoters are going to say at this point. So anything I say about their keynotes is kind of either what I hope they'll talk about or what I expect people will want to hear from them. Microsoft obviously has been doing a lot around, that they've been associated a lot in the public mind now with ChatGPT and some of that OpenAI technology finding its way into Teams. We've got Javed Khan from Cisco, who's going to also keynote on Tuesday. Cisco, has leaned into the kind of hybrid work story and building a platform that really brings in a lot of the technology for hybrid work. Then we've got Mo Katibe from Ring Central, who's going to close out the keynotes on Monday. And Ring Central obviously has been sort of consolidating that market around collaboration platforms and bringing a lot of the installed base under their under their banner. Then on Tuesday, we've got Joseph Chong of Zoom. Obviously, Zoom has, everybody knows about the pandemic, what happened with Zoom during the pandemic. Now we see Zoom trying to be really a full platform with contact center and, releasing email and messaging functionality. So, it's going to be really interesting to hear kind of that strategy from Zoom. Then we've got a keynote that I'm really excited about. Behshad Behzadi from who's the VP of Engineering for Conversational AI at Google. Again, couldn't be more timely. So we're really excited to hear what he has to share about conversational AI. And then our final keynote is Dilip Kumar from AWS. Again, Amazon Connect continuing to be a force in the contact center world. And of course, AWS being a company that pretty much every enterprise IT shop deals with as a key supplier and a key partner.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of big names, and I'm assuming, as is in the past, there will probably be a couple of announcements, a couple of demonstrations that we haven't had before. So there have been so many conferences over the course of the year now. There are more being added. There are more that we've gone to. We just came back from ISE in Europe, and you wonder how many more things people can break, but they've got a lot of stuff up their sleeve. Irwin, let's bring you into the conversation. What do you, before we talk about your sessions, what are you most excited to do personally at the show and to see?
Yeah, I think obviously just seeing people again is always exciting. Last year was the first year back in person since the start of the pandemic. So that was really for me the first trip I think I had taken in a year and a half. I think talking about what Eric just mentioned, AI, I think is going to be the big story of this year's event. ChatGPT has come on fast and furious, and we're seeing whether it's Microsoft adding it to Teams, Google with Bard trying to counter it. You see AI, ChatGPT type, even ChatGPT itself being worked in some of the contact center platforms and conversational AI. In our research, we've seen an explosion in interest in conversational AI, both on the customer-facing side as well as for internal access to data, internal management of tasks and projects and so on. So I think that's going to be the big story, is how are companies taking this rapid advancement that ChatGPT is getting, I guess, all the attention for right now, and working that into their applications. I think beyond that, continued evolution of what's happening in the personal space. We just released some research showing a lot of interest in improving video experiences for remote employees, improving ability for people who are hybrid work to engage with one another socially as well as remotely. So how are companies embracing this new reality that the workplace is fractured for the foreseeable future? It's not come back to the office or stay home, but it's a combination of both.
There's a great slide that I'll share with our viewers for a second and put it up there just for a minute. That was very interesting for me. I'm speaking in generalizations, which are never 100% correct, but most enterprises have wanted to bring people back to the office the way it was. And most employees have wanted to fight against that. They perhaps don't want to be full-time remote, but they want to have that new flexibility they found, and they don't want to give up. And there was an interesting article recently that sort of turned the corner in my mind on that, by saying that companies are now embracing this flexible work style, but they're owning it. They're giving it their names. They're, different companies are calling it, flex with purpose or flex productivity or some. So I think in my mind, that's an admission on most large enterprises that this is here to stay, and they want to try and own the conversation around it.
Well,
I agree. Go ahead,
Erwin.
I was going to say, in our research, we found roughly around 20% of companies that want to bring people back full time. The rest are either a small percent that say, 100% work from home, tends to be smaller companies. But the bulk of organizations are either, we want people in a few days a week just so you kind of build that bond, you have that informal communication, collaboration, or we want to leave it up to employees and say, it's up to you. If you want to come in every day, fine, we'll have a place for you. If you want to stay at home every day, fine, we'll have a place for you. And then it's from an IT and business leadership perspective, how do I ensure that no matter where people are, that they can communicate, collaborate effectively, and not, be at any disadvantage because of where they've chosen to work.
That's a very loud 20%, though, of people that want to have their employees back in the office. Go ahead, Eric. You wanted to say something as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I think, maybe this time it's such a moving target, because like I've been talking to enterprise folks who talk about how, still to this day, and I don't think any of us would be surprised by this, the company policy is you're in the office 3 days a week, but in reality, a lot of people are still just kind of not coming in. And so the thinking is maybe now you have this situation where the management has a bit more leverage over the employees. So maybe this is the time they can lock in those 3 days at least and get, say, okay, Monday and Friday, we're going to, we're not going to even try, but those 3 days we say you're supposed to come in, you really have to come in.
Yeah, it's an interesting bubble phenomenon that we're living through right now, where we have for them, and again, it's generalization, so they're not always accurate, but we have mostly profitable, successful companies culling workforces. Some of them doing it in a way that I think is unforgivable, but that's my personal opinion. And while they're doing that, they're spending tremendous amounts of money on new technology, on Super Bowl ads, on things that are going on. So I think it is a power struggle and a balance. And we're still in the middle of whatever is going to happen here. We'll have to kind of see how it plays out. I personally believe that companies that embrace the flexibility will beat out their peers. That'll be part of your success factor, Irwin, right?
Yeah, I think so. We have seen so we identify a success group. In this case, it was about 66 companies that had above average ROI productivity gains for their collaboration investment. And they do tend to offer more flexibility to employees versus dictating that, you're in 5 days a week, or in 3 days a week, or that kind of thing.
Okay. So what can we expect from you, Irwin? I know you're doing at least a couple of sessions there. Tell us what you're covering.
Yeah, I've got two, both on Monday morning. The first one is focused on collaboration security. And so we have folks from, trying to remember the list of vendors, but we have folks from both the voice side as well as messaging and compliance and governance. And, a lot of the focus on that is, as companies have embraced a lot more applications over the last couple of years, both employee chosen as well as ones like virtual whiteboard, and now you see meetings generating their own content in terms of transcripts and recordings and so on. It's created a lot of challenges around security, compliance, retention, and so on. Where does that data live? How do you secure access to it? So we want to talk about what are best practices? What can organizations think about as they're trying to create a comprehensive security strategy that covers all of the different collaboration applications that they may have. The second one is focused on E911, obviously a big topic here in North America. And what we've seen is that even though a lot of the law has been settled now over the last couple of years, we've had Kerry's Law and Raybaum's Act have both gone fully into effect. There's a lot of confusion in the enterprise side about whether or not those laws which applied to new deployments also need to apply to existing deployments. And what does it mean to be compliant? And what does dispatchable location mean? And emerging, we're also including some folks from the NG 911 side to talk about what's happening on the emergency call center side. How are they embracing next generation technologies to be able to take more data in than just a phone call, have better insight into location. And then we'll talk about what's happening with the mobile space. So as we've seen a lot of advancement in the last year of bringing enterprise communications onto mobile devices, allowing people to use their native dialers, that creates some 911 challenges as well. If someone's calling a 911 from inside of a building and that call is going out over their personal mobile device, does anyone know where they are? Does anyone, what happens when the first responders show up at the front door and no one knows where the call came from? So those are challenges we'll talk about as well.
Yeah, the mobile inherently is creating a lot of controversy around this. I just, and this is a tiny fraction of what you're talking about, but I just upgraded my wife and my iPhone over the weekend. Super Bowl Sunday started at 7 a.m. and it took me into like the first half. Long process, but when I activated IP dialing, I had 3 pages of documents that I had to sign and talk about where I am and where things will be dispatched and how it'll be dispatched. So even on the personal mobile side, it's definitely very complicated and a lot of legalese involved.
Yeah, definitely.
So Eric, we hear what Irwin's sessions are. What are some of the other big sessions that people like to come out and see? Give us a quick handful of your favorites.
Well, the ones that I'm really looking forward to is we've got a lot of sessions this year with enterprise users on them. We always start Tuesday morning before the keynotes with a panel of enterprise end users. We've got a panel right now with a gentleman from Humana, a woman from University of Pennsylvania, a gentleman from a couple of hospitals in Ontario, and we're adding 2 more that'll be up shortly. And that tends to be the strategic session where we kind of look at, I'm sure, I'm sure things like ChatGPT will come up, the hybrid work, but some of the other issues that enterprises are dealing with. And then we've got a session on Wednesday morning with 3 other end users from MasterCard, from Amicus Therapeutics, and a third company called NFP, an insurance company, where they're going to talk specifically about some of the issues around, how they've dealt with these kind of issues that we've been talking about with hybrid work. We also, the other things I'm excited about are, there's great technology sessions, but we're doing some interesting, cool new things with, we have a women in communications session on the main stage with some great women professionals from Delta Airlines, and our UPenn speaker is also going to be on that panel. And we've got somebody from rocket companies, the mortgage and financial companies, from Johnson Controls. That's something we've been doing for quite a few years, is our Women in Communications program, and we really, it's important to us, and it's important to the industry. And then we're also doing a couple of general sessions on accessibility, or a general session on accessibility, and then a breakout session on accessibility. Again, I think some of our the folks that we've dealt with the show over the last couple of years since the pandemic have talked about how this technology really enables people with disabilities to get into the workforce and to be part of roles that they might not have had at a time when accessibility was all about physical access. So we want to really lean into that. We want to inspire and really encourage our audience and our sponsors and everybody to think about how this can be a priority for our industry, and think about how we can help these companies serve their own interests, really, by getting a great cadre of talented workers that they wouldn't have had access to otherwise, and of course achieve these goals. So there's all of those things. And
that's just a fraction of what some of the sessions are.
And yeah, so it sounds like you're cutting me off, but of course,
no, not cutting you off at all. Please keep going.
Well, a ton of conversational AI. We've got a session on the main stage, just a quick 10 minutes, because it came up in December and we already had our main stage program pretty well set, but we had to squeeze 10 minutes on conversational AI with Dan Miller from Opus Research. And then we've also got some breakout sessions. Irwin's colleague, Robin Garris, is doing a session on using analytics to kind of improve customer service. And she's also doing one on customer self-service. This is going to be our biggest year, our biggest contact center customer experience track ever. And that, I think, speaks to the way that whole set of issues has become so critical. It's been growing, but I think it's really just exploding now.
Like I said, and still the comment still stands. That's still just a fraction of what's going on. I know there are a couple of sessions that I absolutely want to go to. We had Brent and Kevin's session previewed on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we'll probably do some other previews as well. How's the expo floor coming along? Are we going to have a good interaction with a number of companies?
Oh yeah. I haven't got the latest count, but we're well over 100 exhibitors. I think we're in the neighborhood of 150. I'm not positive where exactly it's landing. And it's the major guys. Again, I don't want to start listing them out and miss and forget any, but the big companies are all going to be there. And again, I think to the point we're making with the keynotes, they keep announcing new stuff, they keep iterating, and so I think there's going to be a ton of interesting stuff on the floor. And also, I think a lot of smaller companies too. We're starting to see that ecosystem of AI oriented smaller companies emerging, and I think those will be some fascinating places for people to stop by.
So gentlemen, let's talk about trends, industry trends, just for a little bit before we wrap up this conversation. First question, let me ask you before we do that, and I can cut this out if it's inappropriate. But Eric, do we have any virtual component to the show this year?
There is. We're definitely emphasizing, and the message we've heard both from sponsors and attendees is that they're much more interested in the in-person event, but there is going to be a kind of not as big a virtual component, obviously, as we were seeing the past few years, but there'll be some of that, and there'll be some recorded sessions that will be available for replay.
So those that can't make it to the show will at least have some opportunity to know what happened at the show.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right, so let's spitball a couple of the things that are going on in our industry right now. Obviously, we've all talked about conversational AI and how that's exploding, and we don't quite know where on the curve that is. So we're going to do a lot of learning around that. What about the M&A space? And obviously, none of us know anything, so this is all speculating. But do we think that there are going to be some of the companies are going to gobble each other up at this point? Irwin, let's give you the first shot at that. What do you think from the way you're seeing this, the marketplace right now?
Yeah, I think it'll continue. It's certainly been, something we've seen over the last year when you look at where some of the stock values are right now and what's happening with the number of the companies in the macro economy. They're kind of, in a lot of ways entering a more mature market without the rapid growth that we saw early days of the pandemic. It creates opportunities for companies to buy market share, to take out competitors, to look for opportunities, maybe take advantage of lower cost companies that they can buy and expand their portfolio. So I expect you'll see a lot of continued M&A like we've seen, at least over the last 6 months now.
Eric, do you agree?
I do agree. I'll pass on getting very specific, but I certainly, I think Irwin's spot on with that.
Okay. And then where are we on the hybrid work from home front in terms of what's going on from vendors? At the last conference that I was at, almost every exhibitor had a hybrid stand, work from home and work from the office. Do we think that's a message that they're going to continue to push in terms of serving the industry? Eric, go ahead. I'll let you take that one first.
I think so. I mean, I think again, because it's still kind of unsettled and it's still a little unsure where it's going to land. They've all got a hybrid story, and there's a lot of the vendors in the AV space who specifically have the story around whether it's whiteboards or whether it's particular cameras on the table and things that make that better equity experience. There's a lot of tech to talk about around it.
And Irwin, are you having vendors in your private briefs and updates that you can't share with us talking about hybrid still?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a big topic, I'd say, over the last year. So there are two areas. Certainly, how do we improve the experience for a remote employee, giving them better quality cameras, better quality voice, taking advantage of AI to improve how they look, how they're framed, cancel out noise. That's been a big focus area. I'd say the bigger focus moving into Enterprise Connect has been around how do we achieve equity within the office. So Eric mentioned, some of the introductions we've seen over the last few months of new camera systems, multi-cameras, center room cameras, and so on to ensure that people can, if you're working remote, you can have that same experience as if you were sitting in the office. You can see people better than just the bowling alley look of people sitting around a table, hear them better, and then collaborate more effectively. One of the big areas that we've seen in our research is a growing interest in touchscreens within those meeting rooms, so that if I'm on a virtual whiteboard application today, the people at home have the advantage because they're able to, pull up the whiteboard on their screen or tablet, manipulate it, and the people who are in the meeting room are either looking at it on the screen in the front of the room, or then they all have to open up their laptops and put their heads in there and lose that benefit of being in the room. So I think achieving that equity, looking, again, at technologies like person framing in meetings is all going to be a big focus going forward as this, era of hybrid work, I think, continues. It doesn't shift back to all in the office.
Okay, well, a couple more spitballs. How about the idea that the telephone is dead? The telephone has been dead for, 2-3 decades at this point, but yet people are still installing them, and there are new ones coming out, and they're awesome. Like our Edgy series and a couple other things that we have. The death of the phone is greatly exaggerated.
I agree. I mean, you've seen some of our research. The latest study we've shown shows that voice calling is picking up again, largely because people are looking for ways to, not have to be on a video call for every meeting. About 30% of companies actually allow people to have desktop phones at home, because there's a segment of the population that still prefers that device and the speed dial buttons, the caller ID, and not have to go fumble for my headset whenever a call comes in. So yeah, I think the idea that the desktop phones are 100% going away is not one that I hear quite as much as I did a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's good. And Eric, I'll ask you about, I've been going to the show for a very long time. And the topic of the day is always interoperability. It always seems to be what we talk about. I remember, Rowan on stage arguing with people about what interoperability is. What's native, what's your version, what's my version, whether WebRTC is taking things over. And we're at a point in the industry where we're talking about interoperability again, and the game's changing again.
Yeah, and it's always for those of us who moderate sessions, it's always kind of a cheap applause line to just kind of beat the panelists from the vendors over on the head and say, why don't you interoperate? But it's the reason why it's an applause line is because people really want it. Enterprises really want it and need it. And of course, we saw a huge step this past year when Cisco moved towards interoperability with Microsoft in running Teams on their video devices. And so, that was a big step, but we have a session on it that Recon Research is doing. It's still a thing that has to be, companies still need it, especially when you're talking about room to room. Either the rooms can talk to each other or they can't, and your particular configuration, you want that to work for people so that it's they're not wasting their time.
All right, last question for the two of you. And this is somewhat of a personal matter for me, is while I enjoy and attend conferences, and I'll obviously be at Enterprise Connect, most of the best experiences that I have are in the evenings, at private dinners, at places where customers sit around a big square table and talk about what they're experiencing, and where vendors will tell you in some whispers what they might not have told you in their keynote or on the show floor. And I assume that that's the case for most of the attendees at the show, that it's this private networking. It's the shaking hands and hugging and whispering and enjoying meals is definitely one of the biggest parts of having this event back and in full strength.
From my perspective, absolutely. And to your point, again, there's a kind of a myriad of evening events going on all over the place at this venue. It's a big sprawling venue. So every niche and nook and cranny, you've got something going on. And to your point, exactly. It's just, you just can't replace. I mean, that I think fortunately for us as an event organizer, that was something that the pandemic did show us, is that people do want that. People do not want to just stay closed up in their homes or their home offices forever. They do want to get back to in a way that they're comfortable with and enjoy being with other people.
And the large atrium at the Gaylord Palms, that's usually open for the public, where you sit down and you're just seeing people that and these impromptu conversations. It's really an awesome experience. Irwin, is it the same for you?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you mentioned the informal get-togethers. My evening schedule filled up before my daytime meeting schedule. So I've already got, I'm looking at my calendar here on Monday. I've got 3 overlapping events that I need to figure out how I'm going to get to all of them. So yeah, I think that's what people really, obviously there's a lot of value in the sessions and hearing from peers and hearing from the vendor community, obviously seeing things on the trade show floor. But, at the end of the day, to me, the real value is just getting to talk to people, whether that's informally or formally, but having that, ability to have those conversations and not be staring at a video screen for hours on end.
All right, so Eric, I'm going to come to you in a minute and ask you about all the particulars of the show, the websites, the dates, the times, and things like that. But before we do that, Irwin, how can people get in touch with you if they want more information about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, Irwin Lazar. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Mastodon, and those are generally the best places to find where I'm at.
I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter and Mastodon as well. So let's get more people over on Mastodon. And now, Eric, let's do the rapid fire. So what are the dates of Enterprise Connect?
It's March 27th through 30th, Monday through Thursday. Again, Gaylord Palms Hotel in Orlando, Florida. To go get to it on the web, it's just enterpriseconnect.com, all one word. And you can find the links to the program, to the exhibit floor map, and the registration, everything you need right there.
Is there an app for the show this year?
Yes, there is. It will be, again, I think this is a lot of events have gone to this. The mobile app that people, or the app that people will use for the show, is also kind of the virtual event app. And so kind of everything is in this one place.
Okay. And there's still opportunities. There's still hotel rooms in the area. There's still opportunities to attend and sign up and be there and communicate.
Absolutely. we've still got our early bird discount. We had our super early bird discount expire a little bit ago. Early bird discount it goes on. Since we are almost to the end of March, we've actually got a little more time than we do sometimes when we're in mid-March. So yeah, through about March 3rd, we'll have that early bird discount. There's still hotel rooms at the Gaylord Palms, and we have also other hotels in the area that we're also contracted with. We'll have shuttle buses running there, and of course, a lot of people, I think, stay other places. We get a lot of Ubers over, so plenty of choices for where to stay.
Terrific. Eric, thank you very much for joining us and talking a little bit about this fantastic show that's going to be coming up in about a month and a half at this point. It's not going to be the last show that we're going to do about this. I may have one or two of the speakers on the show, and I obviously am going to do a poly preview about what the HP Poly team are going to be talking about and showing at the show. We're still kind of hush having those internal conversations about,
Cool.
What products will we bring out and how will we do it. But thank you again for spending the time with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me and letting me talk a little about it.
And Irwin, again, thank you very much for joining us. We're definitely looking forward to your sessions. I didn't get a chance to really engage with you about this concept of security. It's really interesting and enveloping, especially with so many remote and flexible employees. What is the IT security component of somebody's home office? What is the physical security component of somebody's home office? How do you prevent people from getting into computers and looking at papers on desks? So it's going to be fascinating to be at some of your sessions.
I think we have a topic for a future episode.
Oh, absolutely. I think very, very, very important. And it's going to be a long year. And Enterprise Connect is only March. There are a lot of other things we're all going to be doing together. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being on. I do appreciate it. On next week's show, we're going to do a walkthrough of the PEC in New York, the Poly Experience Center in New York. Erica Noria is going to join us, and she's going to walk us through and show us some of the highlights. It's a beautiful, gorgeous building. I'll try and get some outside shots as well, and we'll share those with you as well. But for now, for all of my colleagues at Poly and HP, I'm David Danto, your host. Thanks very much for joining us. We really appreciate you spending time with us and hear about all the things that we're on, and we'll see you next week.